There comes a moment in every therapeutic journey when the work begins to change. In the beginning, we usually come to therapy because something hurts. Perhaps anxiety has become unbearable. Perhaps a relationship has ended. Perhaps we have lost ourselves in work, parenting, people pleasing, or years of trying to become the person we thought we were supposed to be. We arrive wanting relief. We want to feel better. And that is where the work begins. But it is not where the work ends, because healing was never the destination. Healing is what makes the destination possible. And the real destination is life itself. Throughout becoming you, we have been exploring the most important relationship you will ever have, the relationship you have with yourself. We have met your inner child, the part of you that carries your deepest feelings, needs, fears, and longings. We have listened to your inner critic, the part that learned to protect you through criticism, control, perfectionism, and fear. And we've begun developing your inner nurturing parent, the part capable of compassion, reassurance, wisdom, boundaries, and emotional leadership. Piece by piece, we have been rebuilding the home within you. But now we arrive at perhaps the most important question of all. What is that home for? It is not simply somewhere to retreat when life becomes difficult. It is somewhere from which to live, because many people move through life without ever fully arriving in it. Their body may be in the present, but psychologically they are somewhere else. Replaying conversations from years ago, anticipating rejection, imagining futures that may never happen, trying to earn love, trying to prove their worth, trying to desperately become enough. And without realizing they are living yesterday while worrying about tomorrow. While the present moment, the only place where life is actually happening, quietly passes them by. One of the greatest obstacles to awakening to life is resentment. And resentment can be difficult to relinquish because sometimes it is entirely understandable. Perhaps you were neglected, criticized, abandoned, betrayed, or treated unfairly. Those experiences matter. They should never be minimized. But resentment asks us to continue carrying the very experience that wounded us. It keeps the past psychologically alive. Each time we replay what happened, the inner critic gathers more evidence. You see, people cannot be trusted. You have to stay guarded. You cannot let yourself be vulnerable. There must be something wrong with you. And when the inner critic speaks with that authority, the inner child re-experiences the wound all over again. The original injury may have happened once. The remembering can happen thousands of times. We cannot rewrite the past, but we can change our relationship with the past. And that is where grief becomes so important. Grief moves emotions. Resentment stands still. Letting go does not mean forgetting what happened. It does not mean pretending it did not matter. It means grieving what should have been different. Grieving the childhood you deserved but did not receive. Grieving the affection that was withheld. Grieving the encouragement that never came. Grieving the relationship that could not become what you hoped it would become. Grieving the years you spent becoming what everybody else wanted you to be. Grief honors what mattered. Resentment keeps asking the past to become different. One moves, the other waits. Your inner nurturing parent understands this. It does not tell your inner child to get over it. It says, yes, that hurt. Yes, you deserve something different. And I'm here with you now. It allows the inner child to grieve without allowing the past to determine the future. Another important part of awakening is beginning to recognize whose voice your inner critic actually is. Because one of the most liberating discoveries we can make is our inner critic is rarely original. It borrows. Perhaps its language came from a critical parent, a perfectionistic teacher, a bullying sibling, a controlling partner, or a culture that taught you your value depended upon achievement. As children, we absorbed those voices because we had very little choice. Children tend to believe the adults around them because their survival depends upon belonging. But adulthood gives us something childhood could not: choice. The moment you recognize that voice is not actually mine, something changes. You create a psychological gap between yourself and the criticism. And within that gap lies freedom. You can begin deciding which voices deserve to remain inside your psychological home. And as the inner critic gradually softens and the inner child begins to feel safer, something rather beautiful can happen. life becomes quieter. Not empty, just quieter. The constant internal arguments begin to settle. The endless striving starts losing its urgency. You begin experiencing moments when nothing needs fixing, nothing needs proving, nothing needs defending. You simply experience what is here right now. Some people call this mindfulness. Some call it presence. Others call it spirituality. I'm not sure the label matters very much. What matters is the experience of finally arriving in your own life, because so much of what we call the pursuit of happiness is actually the pursuit of something much older. The child who wanted to feel chosen, the child who wanted to belong, the child who desperately wanted somebody to say, you matter, you are lovable, you are enough. So we chase relationships, promotions, qualifications, possessions, recognition, and achievement, hoping the next one will finally settle the question of our worth. And sometimes it works. Briefly, then the emptiness returns. Not because achievement is meaningless, but because adult achievement cannot permanently resolve an unmet childhood need. That work has to happen somewhere else, through grieving, through self-compassion, through relationship, through becoming the nurturing presence for ourselves that perhaps we once needed from somebody else. And when that happens, we become freer to approach life differently. We can begin exchanging certainty for curiosity. Certainty feels safe. We want to know what is going to happen. We want people to behave predictably. We want reassurance that everything will work out. But life does not offer that contract. And the more we demand certainty before we allow ourselves to live, the smaller our lives can become. Curiosity offers something different. Instead of asking, how can I make absolutely certain nothing goes wrong? We begin asking, I wonder what happens if I trust myself enough to meet whatever comes. Instead of, why is this happening to me? Perhaps we ask, what might this experience be asking me to discover? Curiosity does not remove uncertainty, it changes our relationship with it. And perhaps this is where wisdom begins, because many of the experiences we most desperately wanted to avoid become the experiences that shape us most deeply. Loss, failure, illness, loneliness, rejection, heartbreak, none of these things are desirable. We do not need to romanticize suffering, but suffering does not have to remain meaningless. When difficult experiences are met with honesty, compassion, and curiosity, they can reveal strengths, values, and truths about ourselves that comfort never could. One of my favorite sayings is, today is the tomorrow I was so worried about yesterday. Just think about that for a moment. How many tomorrows have you rehearsed in your imagination that never actually happened? How many conversations have you had inside your head with people who were not even there? How much life have you spent preparing for disasters that never arrived? Our thinking mind is an extraordinary servant, but it can become a very poor master. It predicts, analyzes, rehearses, and tries to control because it believes thinking can guarantee safety. But life rarely gives guarantees. It asks something more courageous of us: presence, humility, trust, and perhaps awakening to life is much simpler than we imagine. Perhaps there is no mystical transformation. Perhaps awakening is simply what happens when your inner child finally feels safe enough to play, when your inner critic no longer dominates every decision, and when your inner nurturing parent becomes strong enough to guide your life with compassion, with boundaries and wisdom. Nothing spectacular necessarily happens. The sky does not change color. There is no dramatic fanfare. You simply begin noticing what was already there. The warmth of sunlight on your face, the sound of rain against the window, the taste of your morning coffee, a conversation with somebody you love, your own breathing even. This moment, and gradually realize something extraordinary in its simplicity. Life was never waiting for you somewhere in the future. It was here all along, waiting patiently for you to arrive. So perhaps there are some questions worth asking yourself. What resentments am I still carrying? And what are they costing me? Whose voice does my inner critic sound like today? What unmet childhood need have I spent much of my adult life trying to satisfy? Where have I confused achievement with worthiness? What might become possible if I approach life with curiosity rather than certainty? And if my inner nurturing parent were leading my life more consistently, what might I begin doing differently tomorrow? Becoming you has never been about becoming somebody else. It has always been about understanding and gradually removing everything that prevented you from becoming the person you already were. Healing matters, understanding matters, self-compassion matters, but ultimately all of this work has one purpose: to return you to your own life. Not yesterday, not someday, not when you've finally fixed everything about yourself. Here, now, this life, your life. And perhaps the final stage of becoming you is discovering that there's nothing left to become. There is simply a life waiting to be lived. The therapeutic journey may have brought you home to yourself. Now it is time to open the door and live. If you'd like to see the rest of my Becoming You videos, they're available on YouTube.